Action! Hi, welcome to the Rumikay Talks podcast, and today we have Amy Walker. She's an award-winning actress, writer, and singer. She has spoken on TEDx, has been featured as Vanity Fair's accents expert, and more. Amy has a superpower ability to instantly switch between accents, characters, and singing styles. Her 21 accents video on YouTube went viral and now has more than 12 million views. Amy is one of the main reasons I'm hosting this podcast in English. Please welcome Amy Walker.
Wow, thank you. Such a joy, such an honor.
Thank you so much for coming today.
My pleasure.
So let's dive in. Let's talk about young Amy. How did it all start?
My parents are musical, so I grew up singing, and I grew up kind of doing all the arts, doing visual art as well, and ceramics and painting and drawing, and but I like using as much of me as possible. So I really loved getting to do acting because then I can use my body, I can use my voice, I can learn new skills, and pretend it's because I have to do the character. So yeah, and I guess just in terms of, I only divided out accents because it's something that I figured I need to be able to do as an actor to be accurate in different roles. So I started doing that at a pretty young age, just to be able to do my job better as an 8-year-old.
Was there a moment when you were a kid that kind of emphasizes the start of this acting career? Like a particular scene that you did with your parents or a particular moment that showed, she might have something?
I think when I was 8, that was a pretty big year for me. That was when I was a very shy kid, and I talked my way into being in an adult's production, not adult as in the other way, but like in a production of the Passion Mime that was at my dad's church when I was up until I was 12. My dad was a minister at a really liberal church, and there was this amazing woman who'd come from Australia to do this telling of the Passion story, but through mime. So it was set to music, but all we had was our bodies and our faces. And I would come to rehearsal because my mom had done the music for it, and it was my dad's church, so they were there. And I thought, wow, this is amazing that you can just use your face and use your body and tell a whole story, and go through it together, and it's cathartic. It was really powerful. I'd asked my friend who was in it, because my friends were all my parents' age. I asked her if she could ask the director if I could even be in one scene, and she did. And the director said no, it's just for adults. She didn't want an 8-year-old kid. But I asked again, and I was like, can you just try me in one scene? And if you don't like me, that's totally fine. And she tried me in one scene, and then I ended up also being a disciple and being in all of the group scenes and leading the processional out. And every night I was in tears, and every night I was enraged as, we're the crowd who sends him to crucifixion, and I'm not religious, I wasn't even religious then, but it's a really powerful story. And that was when I knew, oh my gosh, I want to do this. And then that same year I was in a community theater production of The Sound of Music, as not as Maria, but as the 7-year-old. So it was amazing for me to get to like focus all day, and I loved that, and I wanted to make a career of it. Wow.
In one of the videos, in one of the TED Talks at Phoenixville in Philadelphia that you did like 3-part series on expanding your identity to embody your potential, right?
Yeah.
There I noticed one word that you mentioned. And the word is believeaholic.
Believeaholic.
Yes, that word really stuck with me. And I really wanted to ask you, how did you come up with this word? When did it first pop in your mind? And how did it guide your life?
It's funny. It didn't really pop into my mind until I was trying to find a word for it for that piece, which is, it happens a lot. So a piece of art will pull something into clarity for me. But what it meant to me then was that I felt innately that you have to be able to believe for yourself that you are what you're doing. And so for me, if I'm going to do an accent, if I'm going to play a British character, I have to be able to feel for me that I can be Amy English. When I moved to Australia, I had to be Amy in Australian first before I could play any roles who were Australian. So for me, for any role that I do, I'm going to first live into it as myself, and then I'm going to, you know, pull out from what's already there, because we're not actually, it seems like we're being different people, but we're not. We're really just reconfiguring what's already in there, and then shining a little light through, and then, oh, look, it's a different picture, you know, like a kaleidoscope, right? It's the same pieces of glass, and it's the same light shining through, and then you just twist it around a little bit, you reconfigure the circumstances a little bit, and then it feels like a different scene. I used aholic because it's known, and in my entire career, I'm always trying to explain something that people don't understand yet. So I'm always trying to take something that they do understand and graft onto it the new piece so that it's accessible for people. So I think that's why I came up with that term for that piece.
Yeah, well, that term has a ring to it. A lot of people using it. Like, there is this group on Facebook. It's called Bookaholics, and I'm a part of it. Sometimes I post the book that I'm reading, and everyone's like gives 160 replies to it. People are obsessed with books, and it's really stands out and easy to remember as well. It also reminds me a little bit of Ted Lasso. I don't know if you're familiar with this show.
I love that show. Yeah.
Oh, you do? Yeah. I believe and believe. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I'm really a fan of this word, I guess, in general, and specifically the believeaholic. Here in Hollywood, I'm in Los Angeles right now, and you are also somewhere in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been studying at UCLA and New York Film Academy, and many teachers and people who work in the industry, they would say this thing. You have to pick one thing and focus on that one thing. Like, if you want to be a writer, start writing and like don't do anything else. Just focus on this one thing. What do you think about that? I really want to hear your opinion.
Wouldn't that be great? I think that can be true for people for whom that is true. I've never been able to do that. I can focus on one thing sometimes when I have to do that thing. Like, if you're making a movie, at some point you're doing nothing else. You're just making a movie because it takes everything you have and everything you've ever learned every time. But I have 4 careers, and the main one is growing as a person. The main one is healing trauma as a person and being the most complete human I can be, because that changes everything else, you know. But I also have this company, 21 Accents. I also obviously am an actor, which, as anyone knows, is a full-time job. I also have a production company. I've got, you know, a film, a feature film. It's in draft 3, and we're doing a read, and I do a lot of voiceover. So there's a lot. I've never been able to just do one, but that also means that it's taken me this entire life so far to really be building a foundation. And only now do I feel like I've had bursts at different times, but I feel like only now is the mycelial network starting to pop. Like, everyone's about to understand why it's taken me so long to do what I do, because it's like just about to pop. So would it have been easier if I had just picked one thing and done that one thing and made a name for myself in that? Maybe in some ways, but my brain doesn't work that way. I learn. I'm a better writer because I'm also acting. I'm a better teacher because I'm also acting. I'm a better actor because I'm also teaching. And and this film script, my current script, has taken everything, all the workshops I've ever done, you know, all the books I've read and learned, and personal growth, and all the roles I've played. Everything is pouring into that piece. So I think it just depends on who you are. And the most important thing is staying true to who you are.
Yeah, I'm in. Yeah, that's
not easy.
That's definitely not easy. And I would side with you as well, because I also have this 3 thing or more, I don't know, podcasting.
Yeah, exactly.
The things that I like to do, because, you know, I just, that brings me joy. That what makes meaning in my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about acting side of you.
Mm-hmm.
There is short films that I found that you did. One of them is Into Light, and another is Listen. Let's talk about Into Light, if you want to mind, or we can talk about both. Yeah,
great. Yeah,
what was the experience? How do you go from, I want to be an actor in a movie, to actually completing the movie and screening it and showing it to people?
It maybe in the beginning, I wanted to be an actor, and back when I thought as a kid you had to kind of choose one thing, I thought, all right, if I have to choose one thing, I'll choose acting, because at least I get to do everything else, But I haven't been able to do that. Stories come to me and then I have to write them, or poems come to me and then I have to write them, or songs come to me and then I have to compose them. So the story of Inez Milholland, who's the lead character in Into Light, and who the film is about, she was a real woman. She was a martyr to the suffrage movement in the U.S. And I went to an event when I kind of first moved to LA, a women's history event that was about her, and I had never heard of her. Ever. Like, they never taught us in history about this woman who literally died trying to get women the vote, trying to get equal rights. She was an early member of the NAACP. And so was her dad. I mean, I could go on. She's phenomenal. She was also a lawyer. And this is the early 1900s. It's set in 1916. And I just needed to get her story out. So then what happens is there's this confluence of, okay, this is a story that needs to come out. Nobody's quite doing it. I feel it's coming to me. So let me do the research and just feel where that call is taking me. And then, of course, I wanted to play her because she's flipping fabulous. But at some point, especially if it's a real person, but even if it's a composed character, I will meditate. I will ask that person, that character, that essence, would it serve you for me to play you? Is that how do you want me to serve this story? Because I have to feel, at some point, there's always this moment where I'm like, somebody else would do this better, or there's this moment where it's like, am I just being selfish that I want to play her? But once I get that, nope, it's you. I'm talking to you. You're the one who volunteered as tribute. Then I'm full steam ahead in that. And so with that one, of course, there's a ton of research. So I spent a good year researching. I went out to the people who are the foremost historians and her legacy bearers in terms of her estate. And I said, hey, I want to do this thing. And I really want to do it well. And I just got a lot of support to make sure that I had the right information. And then the short version is I kept to that core of the way that we make this film, the people we bring into this film, the caterers, the people who can, we aligned with the National Women's History Museum and the National Women's History Project, and, reenacting historians who have like the outfits, and with a nonprofit organization that's a production company for women's film, so that we could get tax write-offs for companies that would donate their services or their products, either at a discount or completely free for us for a tax credit. And we also crowdfunded that one. So, we knew that we were asking people to do it for less than their usual rate, but that the purpose of the project, and it came out in 2020, which was a really important election year, and we just wanted to remind everybody of how hard won the vote was. So for me, it was about the project first, and then the joy of getting the front seat as Inez.
The costumes. Yeah, when I was watching the short, I was thinking, wow, they have so many costumes there. That's amazing. So you said that the costumes were just donated, right? That you weren't...
Not entirely. I mean, we really had to put those together. I bought mine, and then we had an amazing wardrobe matron, Elle Maisel, who is fantastic. She's a stylist here in LA. And so she really did an amazing job of putting things together that we could rent or that people would bring. But then we also had some people who, fortunately, there'd just been a rose parade that had a float because it was the 100th centennial of women getting the vote. So it was a huge year for that film to come out. And so there had been all these people who had just been on that float, all dressed in period clothing as suffragists. And, we reached out to them through one of our producers, and we had several of them come, which was really fun. They brought top hats and stuff. So it was a whole many angles coming through together.
Yeah, the Rose Bowl, I actually was volunteering at one of the Rose Bowl parades, creating all those stuff that they put on those cars and things like that.
Oh, cool.
It was, in Burbank here. Let's talk about failures. If you're comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a failure that you could talk about that later in the future, like 1 year, 2 years, or even 10 years, turn into some kind of form of success?
It's a funny word. And it is a good word to get comfortable with because it exists and it sort of looms. But failure to me, a real failure to me would mean if I just never let myself grow from an experience. And sometimes, I had a film project. I wrote a film called Connected, and I spent 4 years trying to get it made. Before crowdfunding was a thing, we were trying to do this new thing that we didn't have a word for, which now we call crowdfunding. And it was something I really believed in, and I wanted to shoot it on the island that I grew up on so I could bring the funds there. And I had a production company that really wanted to make it, but they wanted to make it a really cheap way. They said, or if you raise the money, you can just hire us and we'll make it. And this was a producer who had already offered me a role in something, but I didn't feel it was something that I wanted to bring into the world. So then I was like, well, let me write what I do want to bring into the world, because nobody's like running around asking me to be in the exact thing that I want to do. So let me make that. But what's beautiful, and we couldn't raise the money, and we didn't really have a structure. There weren't the platforms that there are now to do that. And so, I've still got the donations sitting in a bank, like waiting for when I can do that film. But we had this core team of people from around the world who we worked together and who I'm still friends with. I was at the wedding of one of them the other day. I'm the godmother to the daughter of another one. I've helped. There's one who just does work for peace in Brussels now. There's one who's been the photographer for Saturday Night Live for years. And we still keep in touch. And the skills that I learned throughout that whole thing and the community that we were together and the way that we wanted to do it where everybody benefits, where everyone's a part of it and everybody benefits. That's still very real and dear to me, and very much something that I carry forward in the way I run my company, and the way I'm going to do this film, and the way that I've done all my other films is we do it for what we can, and then we share whatever profits, if there are profits, even if that's not monetary, but, publicity or whatever it is, a sense of knowing that you were a part of something that was empowering for people. I still think of it every so often. I still wonder if I would definitely need to rewrite it because it was of a time. I feel like that's going to come around at some point, but either way, I've let it go. I got very, very depressed after that. Suicidal after that, because I felt I'd let everybody down and I'd put everything on the line for it, and then I couldn't do it. But even that experience really helped me let go of that pressure that I have of who I'm supposed to be, and just trust that every day I'm doing what I'm called to do. I do my best to show up. I learn from my mistakes and keep going and being true to my values. And so I keep learning.
Yeah. Let's talk about mental health. Do you have any set of practices that you found useful for yourself to do in the moments like this, and just in general to kind of build the muscle of mental health, so to speak?
Hundreds. How much time you have? They've evolved a lot throughout my life. So I definitely have meditation practices. I have stacks and stacks of thousands of pages of journals. Mm-hmm. That to me is internal hygiene. I have to be checking in with stuff. I process my entire day with my husband, and he processes his entire day with me. But also it's important for me to take time out at different times in the year to go on retreat, to go on like spiritual retreat. And I've had different practices I've done deep dives into. I'm really grateful to have been in many different paths. And I have many different practices that work for me and that shift for me. Things like Vipassana, 10-day silent retreat is an amazing tool. But many communities and circles and places that I can show up and help hold space for people to share what's on their heart, and really support each other. Community is paramount for me. And also I need a lot of time I need a lot of inward time. I'm always working on something that's never been done before. And so if I was constantly, I don't do very well with social media. It doesn't work with my nervous system. And I've struggled with that since the birth of social media, trying to make myself find a way. And sometimes I have times when I can post stuff and it's fine. But if I'm on there for more than about 5 minutes, my nervous system just literally hurts. And my brain, like I've lost all focus that I had. So it's different for me than like, okay, we're doing something about 1800s London, let me research. And of course I will be researching also online and in books and in film and everything I can get. Yes, I can go down that road. But for me, mental health also has a huge thing to do with just being okay with that's not my way. And it is, social media in general, like, and it is for other people and it's easy for some people. So I can partner with other people. But I also am just okay with not posting unless I'm really feeling like sharing. And I check up in person with people, but I don't always know everything that they've posted. Counseling also was really helpful for me when I was very depressed. So I think that's hopefully something that we're starting to undo the stigmas around. I think you have to find the right fit. But that was really helpful for me too.
I'm curious, what is the internal monologue when it comes to making this choice, the following choice? Should I go on social media or should I not? Like you have your phone in your hand or like in your pocket and then, or you don't, I don't know. How do you manage to actually stay away from social media?
Oh, it's the other way around. Yeah, I know that for a lot of people, it's like, oh, I can't not be on it. And it's not that for me at all. My days are very full. And so when I actually, and most of it's online, I'm working with people all around the world. So when I get a break, and I usually stand, so when I get a break, I need to go analog. I want to not be on a screen. So it's never a compulsion for me, like, oh, I want to go on social media right now. The internal monologue is more like, I'm supposed to, I really should, or like, my husband's great at it. He loves posting. He always knows what's going on with our friends in that way. But I'll be the one who's actually seeing them on the weekend more because that's my jam. So the monologue is usually, you should be, it doesn't matter, it's okay. And I really need to post that thing and you should have posted it yesterday. That's okay. I'll make time tonight and I will do it when I feel ready and it will be what it needs to be. That's kind of it.
Let's talk about around the world stuff. Amy Walker, Inside Out, one woman show, London, Sydney, Los Angeles, San Francisco. How did you manage to do that?
Oh my gosh. I just DIY'd it. I had a couple amazing interns and I found theaters and I'd been asked to do a one-woman show in San Francisco and I thought, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work. If I go to that much work, I should do it some other places. And I'd never actually been to London. I always wanted to. And of course, the West End had always been, a goal. I did live in Australia, obviously, and so I had some ties there. And I hadn't been to Melbourne though, but I think it was when I was actually invited to go and perform at a symposium in Melbourne. I put them together and I was like, okay, they were paying me for that gig. And I think they wanted to bring me or they were trying to decide whether to Zoom me in or probably Skype me in at that point. Or if I could come. And I was like, I'll split the cost of the plane fare with you. So we just worked it out where it was like, to me, it wasn't about making money. It was about, I'd been in LA maybe 3 years and it was really a grind trying to figure out what I moved there when I was 30. You hear a lot of stuff about women of a certain age or, if they don't already know you and you don't already have some credits, then it's really hard to get even those one-liners in the beginning. And I was just really tapped out and it's expensive. And when you're marketing yourself, but they don't care what your niche is because the entire role is one line or maybe two, and it doesn't matter what your niche is. That was really exhausting. So I thought why don't I get back to doing my thing that only I can do the way that I do it? And that was a variety show. And so I put it together for San Francisco, and then I rented a theater and did it here. And then I had the Australia connections, so I did it there, and I did it in Seattle. And a dear friend of mine, Chike Okonkwo, had done a show with Tom Hardy in the West End, and he was like, oh, this is a fantastic theater, you should totally go. And I was like, cool. So I did that, and that was wild. People trained in from miles away. It was really, really, really special. Yeah, and then that year, people would say, how can you do that? And I'd say, just do it. That's how. You do it. You book it, and you make it happen.
How long was it, the tour?
Well, I did it spanned a year. So I did them kind of like every once a month or every other month or something. And in between, I was changing up the show. I would get different ideas. I would try something out. I was always doing different pieces. When I went to Australia, I added a bit where I go into the audience and I'm asking them to teach me local jargon, because what fun would that be and what pressure? So it was basically a way to test myself in every way possible. I did live improv, which is terrifying, alone, getting suggestions from the audience. I did sing-alongs. I did meditation in that group. I did all the things you're not supposed to do because they scared me the most and I would learn the most.
Is there a new tour coming?
Oh, bless you. I would love to I did a piece in Washington, D.C. That for this museum there called Planet Word. It's a new museum. It's really cool. It was a private event, so I didn't get to have that video, but I made a video of it for YouTube. And there I'd called it the quantum physics of accents. And I think here I'm calling it communication in accents. And I made a YouTube video, but the content that I talk about in that piece, that I would be happy to bring around different places and have those kind of conversations because, that would be fascinating. At some point, it'd be fun to do a one-woman show, but right now, everything's about the movie.
Let's talk about the 21 accents, the video that you made.
Oh, the video, yeah.
How did you manage to make it so good? All of the accents, not just the accents that you made sound really authentic, at least to me, but also how we're transitioning from one to another and even, doing little things that, I'm a little bit confused, but in an accent.
Yeah. Thank you. So that was 15 years ago. I'm certainly better at it now. But it was really, I was living in Philadelphia at the time, and I just wanted casting directors. There was this new thing called YouTube. It was before it was owned by Google. It was before there were channels or ads or anything. And I'd put my first one-woman show on there. I've done 3. And I'd put pieces on there, and there were these people around the world watching it, which was kind of amazing. But that particular piece I really did for casting directors because, as anyone knows who's tried to cold email someone you want to work with who doesn't know who you are, you can't send an attachment. It'll go to spam. So, but you can send a link, and it won't go to spam. So I thought I'll just make this video where I introduce myself in, I don't know, how many accents? 21. That's catchy. So, in 21 different accents in a single take, and make it short enough that they'll watch it and have it be a link so that it won't hit their spam. I assumed that this is something that every actor can do, and that the next day there would be all these actors doing like 35 and 57 and, you know, if anybody had watched it at all, apart from casting directors. So I wasn't prepared for what did happen, which was that a lot of people watched it and everybody had an opinion. But in terms of how long it took, you know, I was rolling the concept around how it used to work for me in the days when I was making a lot of YouTube videos. It's like I would start to feel an idea roll around, and then suddenly there would be a day when I knew that was the day to film it. And back then I had like this little camcorder. I had no tripod. I would stick it on top of the radiator, which all you East Coasters, radiator, with like books and a trash can just to get it to the right height. And then I don't know how many takes that first day, because I knew several things. I knew I had to start with British accent, because you believe an English person can do accents. I knew that if I started it in American, nobody would believe me. So I started it, you know, obviously in an English accent, which, you know, right away you believe I'm an authority on it, because that is what we associate with imperialism and, you know, English. And then I knew that the hardest part of accents is switching, and that the hardest part of switching is switching between things like Irish and Scottish, or Australian and New Zealand, you know. And so I intentionally made those jumps, Irish to Scottish, or whether it was Scottish to Irish, and then Aussie to New Zealand and back to Aussie. And then I knew that I had to construct it in such a way that just a short piece would have the sounds that you need. You know, for a Kiwi accent, particularly when it's next to an Australian accent, you have to have certain sounds. So that's why I have the 5, 6, 7, I think, or something like that. Like I had to write in a time when I could say those sounds so that you could hear the difference. Because if you don't have that, you know, I was doing a record with Jack White, and he was like, here's a newspaper article, read it in a bunch of different accents. And I get this all the time, in a bunch of different accents. But it's not written in a bunch of different accents. So I was like, okay, give me 15 minutes. I went outside and I went over and over and over. Which of these pieces has the sounds that will sell French? Which of these pieces has the sounds that will sell German? You know, because without that, you don't have a reference that'll take you straight to those sounds. I constructed that piece in a way that you could quickly get to, you know, sell that particular accent. And then obviously I would say the name of it is the long version of that piece. And then, so I did that first day. I watched back the take that I thought it was, and I realized I didn't have it. And so I did a whole other, I don't know, half day or something, and then got it to make it look effortless.
The magic. It really feels like magic. You listen, it's like, oh my God, how many people are there? Yeah.
I will never know.
So you mentioned Jack White. Is it Jack White from the White Stripes?
Yeah. Third Man Records.
Wow. How did that happen?
I got an email from his Earthlink address. And I was like, what? And he was just saying, hey, Amy, I really like your video, and I'm doing this spoken word record series. You know, I've got this record company. I just did one with Conan O'Brien, and I'd like to bring you out to Nashville and do a record with you. And I was like, oh, yes, please. So we scheduled like this, just a chat over the phone. And we were talking, but he was like, stop. This is so good. I want to record it. Just come over. So yeah, I went over, and he's got a beautiful, beautiful facility. He's a lovely human, and his team is incredible. And we just improvised what to do. In fact, he had me, there's the newspaper article thing, like I told you. We had a conversation on the B-side, which was really fun. And then he said, okay, I had my guys set up 2 mics. Improvise something. Just go. And so I decided to have a conversation with myself where I'm saying something in one mic, and then I go to the other mic and answer it. And of course, in different accents, which access different parts of me, really. You know, like there's a whole different side once you're in a New York accent. It's a completely different side. right? So, or an Irish accent or whatever, like it's a totally different timbre. It accesses different parts of your brain and body and your, grammar. So I improvised that, which later was found by this amazing choreographer and owner of Company B Ballet in San Francisco. And he choreographed an entire dance piece to it with his company. And I got to go out and perform live something that I had improvised to the exact timing of their choreography. And then we got to go to New York and do it, which was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Wow. Is there a way to find to watch it somewhere?
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now?
Well, and the record is at Third Man Records. It's really fun because they did 30 different covers. He wanted to do 30 different covers. So like there's all 30. And it's also on iTunes and stuff. And then the performance piece is on my YouTube channel. I think he called it Polyglot. So yeah, we filmed it and it's there. I think it's the New York. I can't remember if it's New York or San Francisco.
Yeah, we'll put that link in the show notes.
It's fun. Yeah, those dancers are incredible.
Let's talk about the Vanity Fair experience. Accents expert. How did you get that gig?
They reached out in early pandemic days when everyone was like, how do we make content? That was the hardest thing I've ever done. For sure. Bless them. They reached out and wanted me to do what turned into 2 videos weighing in on all my heroes in the movies, who of course I don't want to be critical of because I know how hard it is. And they sent me 100 films to shoot this next week in my own home in a heat wave in LA. And of course I couldn't put the air conditioning on because of sound. So I was sweating bullets. And they didn't even tell me which pieces or which actors to do in the beginning. So I'm like, there's no way I can watch 100 films by next week, let alone. So I had to learn not only the accent that they were supposed to do, but their natural accent for the actors that they were choosing. And I had to be able to switch between them and speak with authority on accents that some of them I'd never done. So I had to, learn a few, today, and then be able to do that well enough and their own accent to be able to show you the difference between them. And then no pressure. It's like Leonardo DiCaprio and Meryl Streep, who of course was perfect, Streep. And so it was really hard. And it was like a 12-hour first day because there was way more content than they put in. And then another like an 8-hour second day.
I'm curious, did you get any responses from the actors?
Not that I know of. I totally respect them. I did my best to, give them props, every single one of them. So, I hope they know that I know how hard it is. Feature
films versus TV shows. Which one do you prefer, and which do you think is the future?
Oh, both. They're so different. You can tell it just depends on how long is your story. If your story is 2 hours, then make a movie. By all means, don't make a series. But if you have a robust story to tell and you get the time to tell it longer, awesome. And if you get to evolve with those characters over years, that's incredible. So I like both.
Which one do you watch more?
It depends. If I had to only do one for the rest of my life, I guess I've always loved movies. I love going to the theater. I love that it's a collective experience and there's nothing like that, especially in LA. LA is the best place to watch movies because we respect it. We stay to the end of the credits. We laugh when we need to laugh. We applaud. We don't text or unwrap stuff. It's like, So if I had to pick one, I love that. But I watch shows. I love shows. I watch shows every day.
Which one is your favorite?
Oh, I can't have a favorite. I'm watching right now The White House Plumbers, which I think is brilliant and hysterical. That's Woody Harrelson, and I'm blanking on the other actors. The whole cast is awesome. It's very sharp and funny and political. And then I watched The Death of Stalin last night with one of my favorite actors on the planet, Jason Isaacs. He's in it this much, but also Jeffrey Tambor. It's Like, so we kind of went on my husband and I kind of went on a political deep dive recently. But yeah, I like so many different things.
Yeah, for sure. And I really connect to that clapping experience because I'm also not from LA, and when I come to LA, I explored all the cinema, all the theaters, the AMC, the New Beverly Cinema, the Quentin Tarantino one, and many others. And now, especially like after pandemic or during the pandemic, when you go to AMC theater, you're gonna hear the clap every time, pretty much, 99% maybe.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
to Nicole Kidman coming down the stairs.
I gotta say, yeah, I don't have to say. Yes, that is a thing. I hear accents, and that's a challenging one for me because it changes throughout her entire speech, but I get it. I totally get it. It's really hard, especially for Australians, because you have to stay Australian, but you can't be too Australian. So you have to kind of like change it a little bit. So I'm going to put that R in for an American audience, but then I'm going to lighten that up so that I sound a little more British. It's like a really interesting balancing act for a lot of Australian actors. But yeah, she's a legend. She's a total legend. So it's good. And it's good to be reminded of why we go to the theater. I had a magical experience watching Chevalier, which, have you seen it?
I haven't.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Everybody see Chevalier. Based on a true story. And it was one of those times where I went by myself, but I happened to enter the theater at the same time as this guy. And we just like had this whole shared experience of that movie together. And like, magic can happen like that. And everybody in the theater was just right in it and cheering and, going for the journey together. And there's nothing like it.
For sure. One of my favorite experiences is the New Beverly Cinema. And I was watching The Great Race. It's a 1960 comedy.
Yeah.
And I've been a fan of this movie for a long time. I was watching that in Russian, in Russia, because everything is dubbed there. And it was funny back then. Then I came here and I was rewatching it in English as many other movies to kind of like feel the original film. And I had the whole Matrix experience about the movies, but that's a whole other conversation, how I was watching first and them dubbed and then in English. But that experience at the theater in New Beverly Cinema was incredible because the movie was made like in 1960, and then it's still hilarious, and people were laughing every minute or every 2 minutes. It was just funny, and the theater was packed, and it was on film. They project movies on a film projector.
Yeah,
it just felt really like I'm in a cinema world.
Yeah. There's nothing like watching film. I love to watch It's a Wonderful Life on film. It comes, it'll play at a few different theaters around Christmas. And, there are a few theaters in town that will play actual film. And it's like you can eat it with a spoon. There's nothing like it. It's so rich.
Yeah. And talking about accents and Australians, I'd say that the Australian actors, they tend to have the Russian accent nailed the best. They are the best at Russian accent. I don't know why, because sometimes I was watching, I was thinking that guy was actually Russian, but he wasn't. It's just strange thing about Australians and Russian accent. Why do you think in American films, when there is a Russian person, they hire an American actor or like an actor to say English words with Russian accent as opposed to speak Russian or have a Russian actor? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. And it sucks. And I'm sorry. There's a lot of things that go into that. And it's not just for Russian accents. I'm sure a lot of people will relate from other countries that don't feel represented or feel like, okay, we have come to your country. We can do the accent and the language because it's who we actually are. Please hire us. That's crazy. There are certain monikers that people catch on to, that American audiences will catch on to of a particular accent. And without those exact things, they don't know what it is. They like to have options. Anyone making a movie or a show or whatever, they want to have options. So they want to know they can turn it up, turn it down, take it out, put it harder. They want to be able to try different things. So if you're coming in and you're from another country, know that about your accent. Find what are the things that are the monikers about it that still feel true to you and be able to dial it up or down. Because if they can't tell exactly what it is, they won't feel like it's correct, or they won't feel like it'll sell, you know? So it's just like if you're from a remote part of Ireland and you don't sound like Dublin, they'll probably cast an American who can sound more like Dublin, even if it's a Dublin plus Lucky Charms, sadly, because they want it. It needs to be instantly recognizable, and it needs to have options and be able to kind of dial up or down.
When I'm trying to go back to my to the thick Russian accent, it's kind of hard to go back to that. Yeah, but if I go, it's gonna be something like, "I'm from Russia. I must break you."
So get comfortable with it. Get comfortable with it being you. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to have to take it out of American judgment of Russian and make it something that does feel true to you, which is really tricky, especially when you've spent years, you know, trying to get away from that part of you. But it's nothing to get away from. That's why at 21 Accents, we always talk about, and I just talk about as an actor, don't reduce your accent. Add to it. Add tools. Be able to be all these different forms of that, and as yourself in ways that feel really true and authentic to you. And then from there, do your work as an actor, which is plenty. You know, you got plenty of work to do to be that character, but already feel comfortable with those different realms of it, you know, and it might help to just listen to a family member or a friend, or find another personal reference when it's too personal, when you're inside of it, to go, okay, if I was playing my best friend in this role, let me sound like him. Let me sound like them. And just feel what that feels like, because it's still true for them, right? It's very true. Like every single accent, I have heard people who are more textbook French than I really didn't think it could possibly be real. And it's obviously real, but it's like, oh my gosh, you are textbook French. So I could hardly play at that textbook. It would seem fake, but it's very real for that person. So once you meet somebody, you know, once you find those references for whom it's very real, get to know that and get to know how real that is. They're not trying to have a French accent. They're trying to speak English. They're not trying to have a Russian accent. They're trying to speak English. You know, so find your way back into that grounded authenticity, even if it means going to somebody else first so that you can unpack why you're feeling that separation for yourself.
Yeah. On one side, you could look at the accents and think, it's so easy. You just kind of like pretend to be that person and then you start speaking. But when I was taking American accent classes at the New York Film Academy, there's this experience that I had. I come to the class, we go through all those exercises, the vocal exercises, some like singing things. And at the end of the class, I feel like, I nailed American accent. I'm 100% American, and I'm gonna speak like that for the rest of my life. And then the next day I come to the class again, and the class starts, and I feel like I haven't learned anything. And I could go back to zero, and then I have to go to every single word and practice it and practice it and practice it. And then at the end of the class again, I feel like, oh my God, I can speak with American accent. And then it goes back to zero again. So my point is that you always have to be aware, especially once you start learning of the accent, how to pronounce particular words or even the rhythm of the language.
Yeah.
And it is interesting. It's definitely an art. And especially what you do, 21 accent, that's insane. It's crazy. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it takes time.
Yeah, it definitely takes time, and also like the muscles, right? The muscles need to kind of like adjust and take certain shape.
Yeah,
over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, when I moved to Australia, I was constantly, every day that I lived there, I was constantly paying attention. And still, when I'm speaking with my friends, I'm constantly paying attention to, that's how we say it. That's how we say it. And I'm just sponging the whole time. Or when I watch any film ever, or I listen to anyone who sounds different to me, which is everyone. I'm always listening to those differences, because then when I get to a word I haven't heard yet, like, is it grass or grass? I remember going, I haven't heard. I don't know. And so I might try something out, grass, and then if it feels right, or if I hear later someone says, no, it's grass or something like that, it's grass, by the way, then I'm like, okay, quick, put it into the next sentence, But I think what happens for people is they get a little worried about that, or something happens and they get used to switching that part of their brain off. And that's the part that you have to keep alive if you want to be integrating it into who you are. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to do that in class, and then I'm going to go be me, and I'm going to come back to class and anything will be there. It won't. Because you have to be building these as new, your entire life you've been building your muscle memory tracks. So you have to build completely new ones with as much attention, with more attention, because you're rewriting over existing subconscious. You don't normally think about how your muscles are moving, right? You just think and words come out. So, it takes a lot of attention.
Let me challenge your creativity, if you don't mind.
Okay.
This is the question I ask my guests. If you were an extraterrestrial from a perfect world where everything is in harmony, and then you come to our world with all of its issues, what would be one thing that you'd fix?
Fix. Oh, what a sweet word. It's knowing that we're already in harmony, and that when we pay attention to it, we get to be a part of it. And as we're a part of it, we attune more to it, but it's already there.
Yes, that's beautiful. That's probably the shortest answer that I had so far.
The longer answer is I've got a movie that is actually eventually about that very thing. So go and see it in a few years when it's out.
Emmy, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Something that we didn't cover, or something that you'd like to talk about, promote, links, anything at all? I'm really excited about the new 21 Accents Academy that we just launched on YouTube. So we, of course, still have all of our YouTube channel. I have my acting channel, which is different, but for the accent stuff only, it's YouTube/21 Accents. And then we're starting this whole academy. So there are courses on there. I'm recording new courses every month. Next month, we're going to add British, but we're doing workshops. We've got 4 coaches who are amazing, and all bring, different aspects and different demographics to it. African-American, Mexican, Alex is from Spain. So there's just a lot there, and we all love to share what we have. So come and get it, especially when there's hardly anybody there in the beginning, because then you can get one-on-one time with us. And we're really excited. Awesome.
Yeah.
This is the part where I usually end the interview with this question, and it's called Obsession of the Week. Ooh. And it could be anything. It doesn't have to be related to movies, entertainment, or whatever. It can be as simple as neon chalk markers. Like for me, this week is my obsession. The ones that you go to coffee shops in LA, you see sometimes they have those neon chalks on the board, and I get excited about them, and I don't know, I'm obsessed. I ordered them and I have it to practice. Is there anything that you're obsessed with this week?
I'm in so many rabbit holes right now. They're all related to my film, because that's how my brain works. But especially with the writer's strike going on, it's really important to me. This is how I run my company. It's how I've done every production, every film. Profit share, having something where we come in at a sustainable baseline, but then everybody, the better the piece does, everybody wins. We share that whole concept. Let's apply that to everything. Because I think it will really shift the economy that needs to shift out of this linear into teams. That, and I'm totally in a Jason Isaacs rabbit hole right now. He's phenomenal actor, and so I'm just close up watching all of his brilliance. It was Idris Elba a moment ago, and I just go down these rabbit holes, and I love to really study the greats and just learn. So yeah.
Nice. How people can find you if they want to learn more about 21 Accents or just about you?
21 Accents, we're on Instagram and Facebook and especially YouTube at 21 Accents. Mine are at Amy Walker Official on all the places. I'm not always able to respond to like DMs and stuff, but if you really want to say something, go to my website, amywalkeronline.com. There's a submission there that goes to my email. So yeah, it's great to hear from people. But I like, if you want accents guidance, go to 21 Accents, and that's where that will be.
Thank you so much for coming, Amy. It was a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Konstantin. I love what you're doing. I love your podcast, and I'm grateful for all you do.
Thank you so much.